Hmm. I'm looking at it right now. Sometimes it doesn't look like it. Yeah,
There it
here we
goes. It's
are.
back up.
What was the last thing you guys heard? I just want to know. No, who cares? I'm just gonna start this paragraph again.
Okay.
The interest on loaned money capital is only a part of profit. Profit, whether on industrial or commercial capital, is only a part of the surplus value taken by the capitalist class from the working class in the form of unpaid labor. The economic laws which govern the state the rate of interest are as independent of those which govern the rate of surplus value as could possibly be the case with laws of one and same form of society. But as far as the distribution of the surplus value among the individual capitalists is concerned, it is clear that for industrialists, the merchants who have in their business large amounts of capital advanced by other capitalists, the rate of profit must rise. All other things being equal, to the same extent as the rate of interest falls. The reduction of final evolution of interest would, therefore, by no means really take the so-called productivity of capital by the horns. It would do no more than rearrange the distribution among the individual capitalists of the unpaid surplus value taken from the working class. It would not give an advantage to the worker as against the industrial capitalist, but the industrial capitalist as against the rentier.
I can't believe that Engels is having to fucking explain this to dumbass Proudhon. Like, I even think he's a dumbass at this point. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory. Like that, doing like that, if solving the housing question wouldn't fucking touch the relationship between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you could still have, for example, I think in the Nordic countries they have good housing. I think. But guess what? It's still capitalist. There's still surplus value being extracted from them.
Right.
And yes, cool, they do have benefits that we don't have.
Yeah.
But that stuff is actually currently being taken away. And guess what? There is no Soviet Union to scare them. So they're actually rolling back on this stuff. So social democracy is just a way to calm the proletariat.
Right.
It's a way to stop them.
Yeah,
And I
it's
just
like
want to
it's
know how long have we been going?
counter-revolutionary to fucking
Yeah.
do this. This is not. This is concessions.
Yeah,
You
it's
know.
concessions. I just want to know how long has it been going because we it looks like the clock starts over again.
We've been going for about like an hour and 45 minutes. Do you want to just finish this page and then we can do
Is
the
that what
rest
I know?
next week?
Hmm.
Okay.
Oh well, considering that we have different copies, we may have this page to be different things.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I guess I'll
so
just finish this last paragraph.
okay, and well, okay, so mine. I'll tell you where mine ends at.
Mhm. All right.
Mine
So
ends at. It was bad enough for the 25 years. Um, it's just. Mine does it in two parts, so I don't know how yours does it. Does yours do two parts, or is that just how mine was like?
mine looks like this. So
Okay. Um, do you see a part where it says 1, 2, 3, 4? It's listed.
yes, I do see that.
Okay, so it's like three, or actually, it's like 7 paragraphs after that is when it finishes. You got enough time for that much? Think you're good?
For how many paragraphs?
Okay, hold on. So after that, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs after that thing.
Okay.
Okay, it's not too much farther.
Yeah. Proudhon, from his legal standpoint, explains the rate of interest, as he does all economic facts, not by the conditions of social production, but by the state laws in which these conditions receive their general expression. From this point of view, which lacks any inkling of the interconnection between the state laws and the conditions of production in society, these state laws necessarily appear as purely arbitrary orders, which at any moment could be replaced just as well by their exact opposites. Nothing is, therefore, easier for Proudhon than to issue a decree as soon as he has the power to do so, re- reducing the rate of interest to 1%, and if all the other social conditions remain as they were, this Proudhonist decree will simply exist on paper only. The rate of interest will continue to be governed by the economic laws to which it is subject today, all decrees notwithstanding. Persons possessing credit will continue to borrow money at 2, 3, 4, and more percent, according to circumstances, just as before. And the only difference will be that the rentiers will be very careful to advance money only to persons with whom no litigation is to be expected. Moreover, this great plan to deprive capital of its productivity is as old as the hills, is as old as the Eurasian laws, which have been abolished everywhere because in practice they are continually broken or circumvented, and the state was compelled to admit its impotence against the laws of social production. And the reintroduction of these medieval and unworkable laws is to take the productivity of capital by the horns. One sees that the closer Proudhonism is examined, the more reactionary it appears.
Okay, I'll read now. When now, in this fashion, the rate of interest has been reduced to zero, and interest on capital therefore abolished, then nothing more would be paid than the labor necessary to turn over the capital. This means that the abolition of interest is equivalent to the abolition of profit, and even of surplus value. But if it were possible, really, to abolish interest by decree, what would be the consequence? The class of rentiers would no longer have any inducement to loan out their capital in a form of advances, but would invest it industrially themselves, or in joint stock companies on their own account. The mass of surplus value extracted from the working class by the capitalist class would remain the same. Only its distribution would be altered, and even not that much. In fact, our Proudhonist fails to see that even now no more is paid on the average in commodity purchase in bourgeois society than the labor necessary to turn over the capital. It should read necessary for the production of the commodity in question. Labor is the measure of the value of all commodities, and in present-day society, apart from fluctuations of the market, it is absolutely impossible that not on a total average more should be paid to the commodity or for commodities than the labor necessary for their production. No, no, my dear Proudhonist, the difficulty lies elsewhere. It is contained in the fact that the labor necessary to turn over the capital, to use your confused terminology, is not fully paid. How this comes about, you can look up in Marx Capital, page 128 through 60. I fucking love that so much. He's telling him to go fucking...
He is so condescending. Like, it's absolutely hilarious.
It's so great.
No, my dear Proudhonist.
But that is not
Man, I would
enough.
hate to be scolded by these people.
I know.
They would make me cry.
I know, I would cry too. But that is not enough. If interest on capital is abolished, house rent is also abolished with it. For, like all other products, houses and dwellings are naturally also included within the framework of this law. This is quite in the spirit of the old major who summoned one of the new recruits and declared, "I say, I hear you're a doctor. You might report from time to time to my at my quarters. When one has a wife and 7 children, there is always something to patch up. Recruit. Excuse me, Major, but I'm a doctor of philosophy. Major, that's all the same to me. One sawbone's the same as another. Okay. That's funny. Our Prudonus behaves just like this. Oh my god! So funny. House rent or interest on capital. It is all the same to him. Interest is interest. Sawbones is sawbones. We have seen above that the rent commonly called house rent is composed as follows. A part which is ground rent, a part which is interest on the building capital, including the profit of the builder, a part which is for costs and repairs and insurance, a part which has to amortize the building's capital inclusive of profit and annual deductions according to the rate at which the house gradually depreciates. And now it must have become clear even to the blindest that the owner himself would be the first one to agree that to the sale, because otherwise his house would remain unused and the capital invested in it would be simply useless. Of course, in the interest of loan capital, if the interest on loaned capital is abolished, then no house owner can obtain a penny piece in rent for his house simply because house rent is spoken of as interest, and because the rent contains a part which is really interest on capital. Sawbones is sawbones, though it was only possible to make the usury laws relating to ordinary interest on capital ineffective by circumventing them. Yet they never touched even remotely the rate of house rent. It was reserved for Proudhon to imagine that this new usury law would without more ado regulate and gradually abolish not only simple interest on capital, but also the complicated house rents of dwellings. When the simply useless house should be purchased for good money from the home owner, and how it is that under such circumstances the house owner would not only pay money himself to get rid of his simply useless house in order to save himself cost of repairs, we are not told. After this triumphant achievement in the sphere of higher socialism, Master Proudhon calls it super socialism.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah, we heard this before.
We've heard this before.
Yeah.
It was called super capitalism.
They tried to do it.
Yeah. History repeats itself, I guess.
Our Proudhonist considered himself justified in flying still higher. All that has now been done is to draw some conclusions in order to cast complete light from all sides on our important subjects. And what are these conclusions? They are things which follow as little from what has been said as before, as the houses would become valueless on the abolition of interest, deprived of the pompous and solemn phraseology of their author. They mean nothing more than in order to facilitate the business of redemption of rented dwellings. What is desirable is the exact statistics on the subject, and 2, a good sanitary inspection force, and 3, cooperatives of building workers to undertake the buildings of new houses. All these things are certainly very fine and good, but despite all the clothing and quack phrases, they by no means cast complete light into the obscurity of Proudhonist mental confusion.
But it's not a thing about making it
Jesus Christ. One who has achieved so much feels he has the right to deliver the following series of exhortations on the German workers. In our opinion, such and similar questions are well worth the attention of social democracy. Let them, therefore, as here in connection with the housing question, seek to become clear on the and equally important questions such as credit, state debts, private debts, taxation, etc. Thus, our Proudhonist here faces us with the prospect of a whole series of articles on similar questions, and if he deals with them as thoroughly as the present so important subject, then the Volksstadt will have copy enough for a year. But we are in a position to anticipate. It's so funny.
They held no punches. No punches were held. I want Engels to have a Twitter account. I just want to see what he says. He would probably bully me, and I'd be fine.
He would bully me too. Where is he? Where are they at? Shoot, I lost my place. Oh yeah, but we're in a position to anticipate. So that's actually funny. Because it's like, well, we'll just wait on him. It's all it all amounts to what has already been said. Interest on capital is to be abolished, and with that, the interest on public and private debt disappear. Credit will be gratis, etc. The same magic formula is applied to every subject in each separate class. The same astonishing result is obtained with inexorable logic, namely that when interest on capital has been abolished, no more interest will have to be paid on borrowed money.
I could finish the rest of this part.
Okay.
Because it's only like
The last one is
page.
it was bad enough for the 25 years. Is that I have, yeah.
It's about getting it through.
Yeah, that is the last paragraph of this part anyway. So
Okay, cool.
yeah, they are fine questions, by the way, with which our Proudhonists threatened us. Credit. What credit does to the worker needs besides that from week to week, or the credit he obtains at the pawn shop? Whether he gets this credit free or at interest, even at the usurious interest charged by the pawn shop, how much difference does that make to him? And if he did, generally speaking, obtain some advantage from it, that is to say, if the cost of production of labor power were reduced, would not the price of labor power be bound to fall? But to the bourgeoisie, and in particular to the petit bourgeois, credit is an important matter, and it would be a very fine thing for the petit bourgeois, in particular if credit could be obtained at any time. And besides, without payment of interest, state debts, the working class knows that it did not make them.
And you leave it in.
And when it comes to power, it will leave the payment of them to those who contracted them. Private debts see credit. Taxes. A matter that interests the bourgeoisie very much, but the worker only very little. What the worker pays in taxes goes in the long run into the cost of production of labor power and must therefore be compensated for by the capitalists. All these things which are held up to us here as highly important questions for the working class are in reality of essential interest only to the bourgeois, and still more so to the petit bourgeois, and despite Proudhon, we maintain that the working class is not called upon to safeguard the interests of these classes. Our Proudhonist has not a word to say about the great question which really concerns the workers, that of the relation between capitalists and wage workers, the question of how it comes about that the capitalist can enrich himself by the labor of his workers. True enough, his lord and master did occupy himself with it, but introduced absolutely no clearness into the matter. Even in his latest writings, he has got essentially no farther than he was in Philosophy of Poverty, which Marx so strikingly reduced to nothingness in 1847. It was bad enough for that for 25 years, the workers of the Latin countries had almost no other socialist mental nourishment than the writings of the socialists of the Second Empire, and it would be a double misfortune if the Proudhonist theory were now to enunciate Germany too. However, there need be no fear of this. The theoretical standpoint of the German workers is 50 years ahead of that of Proudhonism, and will be sufficient to make an example of those who unquestion the housing question, to save further trouble in this respect. That is the end of the part one of the housing question.
Oh. It took us a little bit longer because we talked about it too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I laughed a lot because that shit was funny as fuck.
I love my
Okay.
copy of the housing question. It's just such a aesthetic thing.
Oh, it's pretty. Yeah, it was pretty.
Yeah.
My favorite, my favorite little book. I always go back to this book. I just love this book. Is it's this one, this the mini manual of the urban girl. I think it's so precious.
Yeah. Where'd you get it? I would like to read it sometime.
I'll send you a link. Okay, who should we go to? Who should we go to? Oh my god, Destiny's on, you guys. Yeah, right. I'd rather dig my eyes out with rusty spoons than send my crew over to Destiny. Favorite little... yeah, no, it's not, Meryl.
What, Sal?
Cancelled!
What? We're not friends anymore.
I'm
No.
sorry. Okay, so where the fuck are we gonna go? We can't go to actual Jake every time. Okay, Famous Horse. I don't know what Famous Horse is doing, but I like this person.
Do you think we'll make
Oh my god, it won't fucking pause the volume. I don't want to hear the ad. Shut up.
what we do?
You know, like
We do.
90% of the people you mentioned
Together.
whenever we're about to go right now.
Rated PG-13.
I don't know.
I know
who
you
the
don't
hell
know
you're
them.
talking about.
So of course
Like,
I don't
oh,
access
so-and-so,
Twitter.
so-and-so. I'm just
I
like,
use Chrome
nothing going on.
to have someone
Like,
else access
huh?
Twitter for me.
Oh, I know why it's not working.
I swear, half the time you're making up names.
Well, they are made up names.
Oh here.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay.
Ooh, black-eyed
I
children.
just
Listen.
don't know. I don't want to
Black-eyed children, one
send
of
you
the
guys
past,
to like
but that's always
someplace
good.
boring. I don't know.
Hello, Jaden.
Oh, there's an in-game push to talk.
Yes.
I'll probably mute myself on Discord.
Okay,
so
actually, I
there's
hear
no
Comrade
links for
Clever
people
Name
in-game.
is there
When we
too.
get
So
in game, yeah. I mean,
we're gonna
Opera
play a
GX has a
game.
VPN built in. Oh, maybe
Okay,
I'll try
we'll
Opera.
just go there. I like
Oh,
Famous
okay.
Horse and
Well,
I
maybe I'll
like
try
Comrade
Chromium
Clever
or
Name.
Opera.
So please go be nice, say
Hello,
hi,
Yeah.
etc., etc., etc. You know how my boy Engels do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. We're going to finish this next week. Or maybe if I get a wild hair, I'll come on and just like read the rest because I actually really enjoyed reading that. I always forget how funny they are.
Right? You know,
Happy
I haven't
Halloween.
read much of Engels, but
See, I love Engels.
yeah, I haven't read much of Engels. I mostly read from Mao and a lot of texts from like communist parties.
Yeah.
I haven't. I've read Marx, of course. I've read some Engels, but this is kind of like, whoa, this dude is hilarious.
He's
I
so
love it.
funny. Oh my god,
Yeah.
it's so fucking funny. Okay. We're going to do the outro. I'm actually going to prepare a separate outro like soon. That's going to happen. That's like my next thing I'm going to do. So I don't have to like play the intro for the outro. That's what's going to happen. You're welcome.
That?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.